big move made in the NFL yesterday. Stefon Diggs in what, again, probably not the biggest surprise considering all the little, Twitter posts or passive-aggressive comments that he has made and stories that have come out of Buffalo. He is no longer a Buffalo Bill. He is on his way to the Houston Texans. And in exchange, basically the Buffalo Bills were willing to accept, like a 3-pack of Kona Big Waves that Lee bought at a liquor store and like a bag of jelly beans left over from Easter. So he is gone on his way to the Houston Texans. In return, they're going to get a couple of draft picks. One of them's going to be, he's going to get the second-round pick next year, so that'll be a 2025 second-round pick. And there's some other picks that have been thrown in to make the deal work for the Houston Texans as well, too. What is it, $31 million dead cap hit for Buffalo? It just appeared that it had run its course, and they wanted to move on from Stefon Diggs after a 4-year run.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Some would say, like, Buffalo was dying to get him out based on what they got back in return. I mean, so when you're a team and you get a draft pick in a future year, so they got a second-round pick in 2025, that was like all that was that they got back in return for him. It's really viewed as a third-round pick. That's how teams look at it for a future pick like that. That's not in the upcoming draft, but the one following that. So that is not good value. And it lends you to think, okay, between the dead cap hit that they're undertaking, $31 million, they would have been paying him $28 million if he just would have been on the roster this year. So they're actually paying $3 million more to not have him on the roster, getting back a minimal return with what they're getting in exchange for him as far as the draft goes. It really does make you wonder what was going on behind the scenes. I mean, this almost falls in the category of kind of when we saw Antonio Brown move on for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You looked at the trade compensation, you're like, man, for a guy who's got a Hall of Fame numbers and stats and a career, like that's all they got back in return. What was going on there? There has to be some stuff going on behind closed doors. And the only thing that I walk away and look at it and going, that's all you could get for him? I mean, I understand his contract value or his cap hit is high, but you can always renegotiate that, especially with a 31-year-old wide receiver who's been really consistent. He's over 1,000 yards the last 4 seasons. Go back, give him a little more, guaranteed up front, and then kind of extend him out because he's still under contract. And maybe Houston will do that at some point. But I looked at a team like Carolina, and I go, are you serious? You're sitting there with your quarterback, a new head coaching staff because of last year being a disaster, and he's got no one to throw to outside of Adam Thielen. You didn't think that maybe you want to inquire and give up a second-round pick something or a couple of picks this year to put Diggs and Thielen together with Bryce Young and actually give him a chance out there? I mean, there's a bunch of other teams. But instead, the Houston Texans, who appear like they're going all in, get Stefon Diggs' services. So Houston, to me, is one of those big-time contenders. And, look, the window's not closed in Buffalo with Josh Allen at their quarterback spot. But I would imagine between the free agents that are available and all their draft picks they have this year, they're going to spend a ton of draft capital on wide receivers.
So one of the things there, he threw some sort of a hissy fit. Stefon Diggs did on Twitter to where he just, wrote something vague ready for whatever, and then changed his picture to him waving bye, and so people took that as well as he waving bye to Buffalo or whatever. And I remember we were having the discussion about it, are they just going to move on from him? And you pointed out, well, no, they wouldn't just move on from him because it doesn't make business sense to move on from him based on what they were paying him and what the dead cap hit would be. And then just a few weeks later, they're just like, all right, dude, it's time. And I know Brandon Beane spoke and said, well, it's not, I don't want to talk about whether or not they asked for a trade. But yeah, I wonder, does this go back to, and maybe Albert Breer, we're going to catch up with later on, has some insight on it. Does it go back to his meltdown in the playoff game? Does it go back to him leaving training camp? Does it go, what happened? Because this is now twice that one of the better receivers in the NFL, teams have just been like, all right, let's move on. And it worked out for Minnesota because they ended up, drafting Justin Jefferson.
Right.
And, he's one of the better, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL. What happens with Stefon Diggs to where he just runs hot after about 3-4 years and teams are like, yeah, we're better served moving on. It's over.
There's certain personalities and guys that just, I don't know what it is, man, but they really have a hard time being able to be in one place. I should say this, want to be in one place for their career and kind of build up their legacy. And I think they want the stats, they want the fame, they want to try to go win a Super Bowl, and they'll kind of keep searching wherever they feel like that they're best suited. And look, maybe Stefon Diggs felt like in Minnesota they hit their wall, they hit their ceiling, and they weren't going to get any closer. And he tried to work his way to get out of there. Maybe he feels that way in Buffalo. You know, we've had that conversation about where is Buffalo at. You feel like with Josh Allen, you're always a contender. I just said that I feel that way. But they're going to look different. They're going to be a team that's going to run the football more. And I think that was one of the things Joe Brady, when he took over as their play caller, focused on highlighting James Cook and highlighting different pieces within their offense. And maybe some of that was frustrating to Stefon Diggs because he feels like he needs to be highlighted more within that system and targeted more, even though in the playoffs it hasn't really worked out quite that way. So I wonder if it's the frustration of Stefon Diggs being in Buffalo now for a series of years where, I mean, look, to his credit, when he got there, he really helped bring Josh Allen to the point of where he's at.
Yeah.
You know, the 2 years prior, there's a lot of questions about Josh Allen's accuracy and everything else. And I got a chance to call some of those games. And I kept saying, just give him a number one. Give him a number one wide receiver. They bring in Stefon Diggs the next year, he blows up. And now he's the player we all thought he was going to be. Now that took 3 years in the same offense, 3 years same place, same head coach, a lot of patience, and then they give him like a true number one to throw to, and you see what he's capable of. There's probably a lot of quarterbacks they could wish they had that scenario, but I think at some point Diggs probably is looking around like, man, I'm getting frustrated with this. Like we're a playoff team, great. Yeah, we won some division titles, but we can't seem to get over the hump. And not that he has any control over it, but like think about that. Buffalo is trading him. Like, so forget the dead cap hit and the fact that it's more than what he would have been paid in Buffalo. Forget the fact that they only got a second-round pick in 2025, which, Houston's going to be good, by the way. That's not going to be a good pick. It's also the fact you gave them to a team you're going to see.
Yeah.
Houston's going to be a playoff team. Houston might be, to me now, with Stroud into his second year, all the things they've done offensively, defensively, Nick Caserio's all in, that might be the best contender for the Kansas City Chiefs next year.
Yeah.
So you're willing to trade him there instead of, I kind of threw Carolina as a NFC, like another option, for you to another place like that. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's a wild turn of events for Stefon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills who... Listen, man, that damn Patrick Mahomes got a lot of blood on his hands. He has wiped out a lot of Super Bowl hopes and dreams for a lot of franchises and players in the NFL over the past few years, and the Bills appear to be the latest one, especially Stefon Diggs with Josh Allen in Buffalo.